Hey, welcome to Oopsie Daisy. You've found a place where you can hear real struggles, real stories, and life lessons that are going to help you live real free in Jesus. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's go. So everybody, welcome back to Oopsie Daisy. I'm so excited to be in studio with Sara Bohling today. How are you doing, Sara?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fabulous. I actually am so excited. I was saying this to you before we hit record that I was really excited to reconnect with you because we had connected previously, and then there's some things that, went down, life happens, and we weren't able to record right away. And I'm so glad that we got this time again to come back and just really share your story and hear your story. So thank you for connecting with me again. Thank you for reaching out again. And I'm so excited for you to share your life and your story with our listeners. But first of all, just tell us a little bit about who is Sara Bohling.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to connect again as well. So, my name is Sara Bohling. We live in the Midwest in Nebraska, so as far away from the ocean as you could possibly be. But we have amazing sunrises and sunsets. So, we got that going for us.
Redemption.
Yes. I am a wife and a mom to two girls. They are 15 and 12. We also have our third, quote, child is a golden retriever. She's so sweet. And I am a nurse by training for about 2 decades now, over 20 years.
I love it. I actually had been kind of praying about my own health journey and just really hoping for somebody to come on the podcast that really had walked an interesting and maybe tough and winding road with the Lord, with medical things and with health, because I think it's really hard to navigate sometimes. And you, magically, but not magically, totally God, popped into my inbox and we were able to connect. And so I would love for you to just dive in and just share the road that you've walked.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like our family is the poster child for walking a winding road with the Lord when it comes to health challenges. So I'm going to try to summarize this years-long journey. We're going to take it back to 2016. So right about this time of year, about Christmas time, 2016. My girls were 4 and 7 at the time. So we're doing, preschool, elementary, Christmas programs, all the precious things that happen in that phase of life. And it was amazing. We were doing that. I was working my full-time job, which was, I am a NICU nurse, and it really was my dream job. I mean, I had gone to school for a whole lot of years to get this job and this specific training, and it really was really amazing. And I was like living the dream. And also looking back, I was burning myself out. I didn't recognize it at the time. I just thought that that's how it was when you had 2 small kids and you were, working a job that has a lot of expectation. I just thought that that's how it was supposed to feel. Now I know differently. But we celebrated Christmas that year, flowed over to the new year, and that first week of January, I woke up one day to go to work and I did not feel well. Like whole body bone aches, like aching I had never had before. So what does any, quote, good nurse do? We go to work because, we don't have a fever enough to stay home and I can still walk. So I'm going to go to work.
I'm not dead. I'm showing up. Yeah.
Yep. So went to work feeling real rough for a couple of days. It just was like this heavy weight of fatigue and so much pain and this temperature. So obviously there was some sort of virus happening in my body, and I just thought, well, it's going to work its course. I'm going to be fine. And I woke up a couple of days later and I tried to get out of bed, and it was like someone took a baseball bat to the back of my skull. It was like somebody was practicing their home run hitting, and they connected with my skull, and it dropped me to my knees. So I kind of shook it off and regrouped and tried to get up again, and the same thing happened. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. Something is going on here, and I got to stay, and I got to go see what's going on. So we went to the doctor that day, and they did lab work and like some, CAT scan, that kind of thing, and it all came back normal, which is great. I'm going to condense the next 4 months into like 2 sentences of it got worse and worse and worse, to the point that I could not walk. I had to crawl anywhere I went, to the bathroom, to the kitchen, to try to get some food. By the time I got to the kitchen, I was so nauseous I couldn't even think about eating. So I lost like 15 pounds in the course of a couple of weeks. Could not handle any type of lights or noise. Like even the beep of the microwave was like agony to me. So nauseous, so motion sick. Like something was going on with my brain, but nobody could figure out what was going on. By this point, I'd been to multiple doctors. We'd had gallons of blood work drawn, and every test it felt like you could have for x-rays and scans and all the things, and every single thing was normal. Yet I can't walk, I can't drive. When I'm sitting up, my memory is so bad, I didn't even know my own phone number. Filling out forms in the doctor's office, I had to look at my phone to write down my phone number one digit at a time because I didn't even know what it was.
Wow.
And that was so scary to know that something so significant was going on and nobody knew what was happening. And then you start to get to the point where they're like, well, are you just seeking drugs? Or are you being dramatic? Or maybe it's all in your head. Like everything is fine on paper. So maybe it's you that's the problem.
Did you buy into that at all? Were there like mind games that you started to play with yourself that maybe that was true?
Occasionally the thought would start to slip in of maybe it's not so bad. Like maybe I am being dramatic. And I remember a few times specifically, like I desperately wanted to get up, put real clothes on, and go to church with my family. So I would get every ounce of strength that I had to like find some real pants and brush my hair, and I'm going to go to church with my family because gosh knows I need Jesus a whole lot right now. And maybe Jesus at church is going to meet me better than Jesus in my dark bedroom. And by the time I would be walking out the door, I would just have tears. And it was then that I would think, maybe I'm just being dramatic. I can't even get ready to go to church with my family. Like, what, why, what's the deal? Just buck up, be stronger. You can do this. At the same time thinking, I absolutely cannot do this, but nobody knows what's going on.
So during this time, because this was a period of months and months, what does your relationship with God look like? I know, here's why I ask, because I think I get in my head sometimes like, oh, if I have a migraine or if I'm feeling sick, I often like skip my quiet time. I'll skip reading the word. And how do you navigate a relationship with God? How do you have that conversation when you can't have light, you can't have sound, you can't have anything? Like, what did that look like to try to muddle through those really dark months and still stay connected or try to stay connected?
Yeah. So full transparency, during that phase of my life, I did not have a regular quiet time with the Lord. I was not like, I'm going to read my Bible every morning before I get up and go to work. I was like, hit snooze as many times as I can and get up and go sort of a thing. Yes. And then by the time you crash into bed at night, it's like, dear God, thank you, fall asleep sort of a thing. So I didn't have a regular practice of that. And I didn't really even like have a Bible verse before I started that like was like my go-to. Like I knew a couple, but like, I didn't have scripture written on my heart like I do now. And honestly, so one verse did come to me during that time, and that's become my go-to verse, and it's Joshua 1:9. Be still and courageous. Do not be afraid. The Lord your God is with you wherever you go. God put that very clearly on my heart during that time, and it's been near and dear to me ever since. But to answer your question really specifically, my time with God was literally whispering the name of Jesus And that's all I could do. In my head or out loud. Like that was all the cognition that I had. And I just had to have faith that most of the time God knew what I needed because I didn't even have the brain capacity to like form a coherent prayer at that point.
Yeah. I think that's so encouraging because, well, A, there is power in the name of Jesus. So you just thinking that, speaking that one name, I mean, if you're going to say anything, say that, you know? And also just the fact that the Holy Spirit does intercede for us. I love how when we're medically or physically unable to have this like beautiful, vibrant prayer time. You know, we're not able to get in the word and it doesn't look like, I think sometimes we think it has to look like that the Lord meets us exactly where we're at. So that's beautiful. I mean, tragic that you ended up at that point where the only thing you could say was Jesus, but also so beautiful that his word promises to meet us in those situations and meet you there.
Yeah, for sure. During that time, I mean, literally, I was laying in bed 23 hours a day in the pitch dark. I would whisper to my family one time a day. They would come in like at bedtime, and I would get to tell them that I love them. And the hardest part was I could hear them living life on the other side of the door, and I couldn't go out there. And there were moments that I thought, what if this is a preview of what's to come? What if I'm not going to make it through whatever this is and they're figuring out how to do life without me?
Wow. How do you navigate that? How do you talk to yourself about that in those 23 hours? I mean, how do you deal with that?
I couldn't dwell on it because that's a slippery slope. And so many people are like, well, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I didn't watch TV. I didn't watch movies. People sometimes think, oh, that sounds amazing to be like laying in your bed with no one bothering you. Like, that sounds great for about a day and a half when it's on your own accord. But when you are literally like chained to your bed, felt like it doesn't have that same appeal to it.
Yeah.
And I really vacillated between like just surviving in the moment with all the pain and all the things that were happening, trying to rest my body and sleep as much as I could, and then just digging really deep and knowing that, okay, if no one else is gonna figure out what's wrong with me, like I have to do this on my own. And I have to use the knowledge that God has given me as a nurse and to like wisely search the internet because Dr. Google can be a little scary sometimes.
Right? You end up on WebMD and it's not good.
Oh boy, yeah. So I thought, okay, I can't stay like this. I can't just surrender to my family living life without me. I have to try everything I can to climb out of this hole. So 5 minutes at a time, like literally one eye open on my phone, I would start to like search my symptoms. I ended up discovering that it could have been meningitis. That was one of the options thrown out there. But in searching for that, also very common signs of viral meningitis also match with having a spinal fluid leak. So a spinal fluid leak is when there is a lining that goes around your brain and your spinal cord. If you think of it kind of like a water balloon, it keeps fluid in there and it's really the protection for your brain and your spinal cord. It keeps your brain floating in your skull. If you don't have that fluid, then your brain like falls, like clunk down in your skull and like hits your bones, and your brain needs fluid to operate appropriately.
Wow. That sounds terrifying, by the way. Just knowing that our brains are very precariously positioned in our head like that. Like, thank you, Jesus, for making that all like work like that.
Yes. So when you have a leak in your spinal fluid, if you imagine a water bottle that is upright and you poke a hole in it halfway through, if it's sitting upright, the water is going to squirt out pretty aggressively because it's full. If you lay that water bottle down, it's going to like trickle out more than like forcefully squirt out because of gravity. When I was upright, my spinal fluid was squirting out, and then when I would lay flat, I would feel a little bit better because I didn't have gravity working against me and the fluid could stay a little more even. Now, why I would have this leak made zero sense because usually you get them from an epidural with labor and delivery, having a baby, or if you've had surgery on your spine, or maybe sometimes even a car accident or some sort of trauma, you might get a spinal fluid leak. You don't get a spinal fluid leak just because. Like, I didn't think that that was a thing. Spoiler alert, it is a thing. You can get a spontaneous spinal fluid leak that just happens, often as of a viral illness. So your brain produces spinal fluid, and when it's God made us so intricately, like it has its own little pressure gauge. So when it can tell that the pressure of your spinal fluid is going down because of the leak, it kicks up production. It's like, okay, little elves, so to speak, let's go. We're making more spinal fluid today because it's leaking out. We need some more. So yes, your brain can compensate for that leak by making more fluid, which isn't that cool.
Wow, that's fascinating. I just am so struck right now by how God designs our bodies to monitor ourselves like that. Like he even gave us he created us and he's constantly with us and guiding us, but he also set our bodies to self-monitor and self-adjust. And I think that's fascinating.
It is. It totally is fascinating. The longer I'm on this health journey every day, the more I'm like, wow, you did that too. Like you thought of that detail that no human could ever think of how the body is so deeply interconnected, far more than professionals ever realize, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so you have this baby theory. Do you take it to anybody? Like, what's next?
So I literally started old school printing medical research articles. I started creating a binder, and I would take it with me to every doctor's appointment that I went to. And then I just had to feel out each doctor, are they going to be willing to at least listen to my theory, or is it their ego is too big? You have to find the right person that is open-minded enough to at least consider it. So after lots of terrible gaslighting appointments and so many yucky, rotten things, we finally get to a neurologist appointment, and my research bag is getting heavier and heavier by the day. So I show up to a doctor's appointment with all that I can to keep my body from falling apart during that appointment. I can only sit up for very limited amounts of time. I mean, I lay flat in the car, and I literally laid on the floor of the lobby. And when you lay on the floor of a waiting room, people pay attention to you. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, would you like a room? Again, another new doctor came in, and my research is tucked under the chair. And I tell him everything that's going on without even me saying anything. He says, I think you might have a spinal fluid leak. And it brought my husband to tears. And for him and me to hear validation of finally someone is listening and believing what I have going on, and they're on the same track that I'm on. This feels like the biggest victory. So after we rejoice that he agrees that I have the spinal fluid leak, I'm like, okay, what's next? He said, we're going to go and we're going to give you a blood patch and you're going to be back to work by Monday. So, okay, here we go, God, let's go.
Explain a blood patch to me. That sounds A, terrifying, B, impossible because blood is liquid. So what are we talking about when we talk about a blood patch?
Yes, absolutely. So you take blood out of your arm and then you inject it into the spinal space in your back, where you would put an epidural for labor, right into that dural space of the lining. Now, some people, you can do imaging and they can know right where your leak is, you can see it on imaging. I was one of the 40% of people that you can't see it on imaging. So you take the blood out of your arm, you inject it into your spine, which is the strangest feeling because you feel the pressure building in your spine and in your brain. It's kind of like when you go to the deep end of the pool and you have that pressure on your head. That's what it feels like while you're getting a blood patch. It's the wildest thing. And then they take the needle out, and then because God made the body amazing, blood does what blood is designed to do, and it like scours and finds like the hole. Just like when you skin your knee on your bike, your blood clots in that hole and it makes a scab. So the goal is for the blood to like scour and find where that hole is, where the leak is, and then make a scab. And eventually the scab over time turns into scar tissue. And then the scar tissue is what seals the leak for the rest of your days.
Okay, so here's what's wild. As you were talking about this, I'm sitting here thinking of the verse in Romans that says, God works everything together for the good of those who love him. And I'm sitting here going, okay, we think of scars as a bad thing. Like, we don't want scars and scar tissue. It's hard to get through and it blocks up your body. But here we are using something that's indicative of a trauma to heal this leak. I don't know. That kind of blew me
Yeah.
away a little. I was like having a moment over here about that. That's cool.
That's super cool. I have not ever thought of it like that, but that is absolutely right. That our scars make us stronger,
Yeah.
literally. So I had that procedure done. He's like, we're done. You can put your clothes on and go home now. And I'm like, what?
Right. You just dabbled in my spine. We're good? Like, I don't have to stay?
Yeah, feels like I should have, I don't know, some more monitoring or something. So I
Like,
did
maybe some orange juice, even?
yeah, cracker. I don't know. So I'm like, can I stay for a while? And they're like, oh, sure. Great. So when I stood up after that blood patch, that baseball bat pain was gone.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, is that really all it takes? Spoiler alert, I did not go back to work on Monday. I kind of had like a rebound effect from that because my body had leaked spinal fluid for so long and that my brain was overproducing spinal fluid in compensation for the leak. So now instead of having too little spinal fluid and only being able to lay down and that sort of thing, now literally overnight I went to having too much spinal fluid. And my head was always feeling like it was like gonna explode, like at the deep end of the pool. And I could not lay down at all. It was a little bit better because at least I could stand up. But still, this whole different type of misery. But I kept saying, it's better than leaking because at least I can interact with my family now.
Yeah.
And then one day, about a month later, I got up and that baseball bat pain was back. And it took me a couple of days to accept that it was back. So because my fluid was so high and my pressure was so high, it blew that patch out. It blew that scab out and I'm leaking again. So I knew I had to find expert help. My condition was back and we're supposed to go on vacation. And how am I going to do that? And the worst part of the whole thing, besides like admitting that, was telling my family and watching the look on their face as I had to be honest, because you feel like such a disappointment. That's the best way I can describe it, is a disappointment and a burden to your family, even though it's nothing that you can help and you cannot prevent it. But the feelings of disappointment and guilt and burden are so heavy in those moments. So we went on vacation. I literally laid flat the whole time. Thankfully, we were driving. So I laid flat in the car. I laid flat at the beach. I laid flat while we played games. As if I was laying flat, I could do okay and interact with people some. And so I nicknamed it Flat and Happy. Someone would check in. How are you doing? Well, I'm flat and happy. Like, what do you do? You know, you have to kind of be funny about it. So that whole process went on, and then I ended up connecting with some experts in North Carolina who are the world experts in CSF leaks. And we drove because there's no way I could fly. So it's a 24-hour drive from my house to there. So I literally laid flat in the back seat the whole time. And we went through 10 states to get to North Carolina. And we got there and they did a repeat blood patch and it did not work.
Oh.
There was no change. I just went to the world experts. They did not fix me. Now what?
Was there a crying out to God at this point of like, what do we do next? Were you at the point where you were seeking wisdom and direction from him, or was this still like just very like help Jesus and that's it?
For sure, both. It was definitely help Jesus and a lot of why. Why are you doing this? I thought we had this figured out. I thought that was going to be done. I've told my job a million times, I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. I'm going to be back in a month. I desperately just want to go back to normal. Like, why? Why aren't you letting me do that?
Did he ever answer?
No. Now I know, but he never answered in that time. And that was the time when I really had to get to the point of, okay, even if you don't choose to heal me, I'm still going to glorify you. I'm still going to love you, and I'm still going to be so grateful for all of my blessings, even though they look nothing like what a lot of people traditionally consider as blessings. I'm to the point where my blessings literally are, I made it outside today and I got to feel the sunshine on my face. I get to hear my children laughing, whether it's on the other side of the door or whether they've come into my bed. We did kind of start doing this yay day, we call it, and we would climb in bed every Friday after school, and they would climb in my bed for like 10 minutes, and I would muster up all my strength the whole day long to do this, and we would take silly selfies in my bed, and we would call it yay day. And those are like the sweetest memories to me, even in the darkest, literally darkest times. A friend of mine sent me that, I think it's a Mercy Me song. It's called Even If. Even if you don't take this away, I'm still going to praise you. So that song kind of became my anthem for a while. And I still didn't give up, that determination in me to keep pushing forward and keep trying. I mean, I had two sweet little girls that I had to keep trying to get better for. There were moments, there were days that I was like, I'm too tired to try today. And there was a lot of surrendering to God.
Yeah, I was thinking too about this idea of, like in my own life, even right now, struggling with the idea of, am I still valuable? Am I still worthy if I can't produce anything? If I can't be productive? If I can't do, I can't imagine the level of surrender that takes to still know, like, I have a place in this family. I am a valuable human being, even though I can't really contribute a lot. Was that a struggle for you at all?
Was and still is. 100% still is. Finding who I am, who God created me to be, stripped away of every title that you normally associate yourself with. I wasn't being a nurse. I wasn't really being a mom. Wasn't really being a wife. I was producing nothing. And even still, I struggle with that, letting go of those things and like, who am I in God? That is a continued challenge for me. Because my story is just not what I ever dreamed it would be. I was going to be a NICU nurse until I retired, and that's not what God had planned. In the strangest way, this is so much sweeter. There's been so many more blessings and moments that I would not have gotten. Working in the hospital, 14-hour shifts and weekends and 3 a.m. and all that sort of stuff, I would not have gotten the moments with my family, and I certainly, I am for sure, would not know Jesus like I do today without this journey. True.
Wow. So I think I kind of distracted us from your North Carolina trip.
Yeah, you did.
So you get this blood patch in North Carolina. Does that one stick? Are you feeling better after that?
No, that one did not stick. And then after that, the experts in North Carolina connect me with an expert they had trained in Oklahoma. And that blood patch didn't work either. So now I've had a total of 5 blood patches, and none of them have given me lasting relief. And then I got the call from my work that they could no longer hold my position and they were terminating my job. My dad pushed me in a wheelchair to go to my office to clean out my things in a place where I was a leader before. I represented the NICU to the entire hospital, to not even be able to walk down the hallway. That was a humbling day. And I just kept thinking, okay, God, like, I don't understand why this is happening, but I have to trust you. Because when people can't fix it, when all the money in the world, I mean, we did not have all the money in the world. We've spent it all on medical bills and then some. What else can fix it besides God? You have to put your faith and your trust in God in this, because nothing of this world is going to get you through those times. So they terminated my job, and then I had $0 of income from then going forward. And I was, at the time, I made more money than my husband. So we had cut our household income by 60, 70%. The bills don't change. The bills are more. And we're somehow trying to figure out how to make this work. And now I have no job to return to, even if I get better. That was the day that I released my timeline. This whole time I had been clutching so tightly to this invisible timeline of getting better. And when I didn't have a job to go back to, I was so sad. And also, it was the biggest relief to not have that self-imposed burden of somebody's waiting on me to do something and I need to go back. I don't have that now. Now I can 100% focus on my healing. So here's the craziest part about this. So I get my blood patch, I come home, I get fired like literally the next day. I get up 3 days later, I don't have that pain anymore. And I'm like, it had been 2 weeks since I got the blood patch in Oklahoma. Okay, blood patches usually help within minutes to hours. Like, surely that's not what's going on. Surely this is like just a weird day. If God's like, hey, look, you get a break. Here's your health back for the day. You get a break, and we'll be back to regular scheduled programming tomorrow. So each day I got up and I did not feel that pain. And my CSF leak was sealed. There's zero scientific explanation for it. Not one article, anything would say 2 weeks of time for it to take impact. We know it was all God. 3 days from surrendering, hello, totally God. So our whole journey has been, okay, like how can we use God and show God each step of the way? I've never had a CSF leak again since that day. And it's wild to think about looking back. I mean, so it was almost a year of being in bed. And then all of a sudden I can function more. It's really been like a pretty amazing journey. And I tell people that I would do it all over again.
Really?
I would do it all over again for the relationships that I have that are deeper and better and fuller and richer now with my children, with my husband, and 100% with God. And, I heard recently on a Max Lucado podcast, because he's one of my favorites, it was about being assigned to suffer. And you're assigned to suffer when you're going through a challenge and you pray and you pray and you pray, and God's not taking that suffering away from you. But your story is inspiring other people. And so many times people have said, oh my gosh, I don't know how you do this. How are you so strong? Like all those things that people tell you when you're walking through a really hard journey. And, going through it, you're like, I don't have a choice. Like I'm being as strong as I can be because I don't have any other choice. And God is bringing me along. Like I am clinging to his hem. And the longer I walk this journey, the more I cling to his hem and the more I surrender my own plans and journey. And I don't know how long this assignment to suffer will last, because like I said, healing the CSF leak is not the end of the story. For sure not. We still are going through lots of health and seasons of suffering, but to know that I am pointing other people to Jesus, not just me, my whole family, because people are watching not just me, they're watching my husband, they're watching our girls, they're watching our whole family navigate all the challenges. And if they can be more curious and get to know Jesus more because of our walk, then that feels like an honor to be called to be one of those people to do that.
Oh my gosh, what a perspective. The idea of being assigned to suffer, most of us think of that when I'm like, the Lord asked me to give up coffee for a week. That's like suffering, to a
Yeah.
lot of us. We've gotten real addicted to comfort and feeling great and operating at, high, fast levels and, being and doing and all of these things. But truly to recognize that there are times when we are not called to that and that we are still called to glorify Him. And I was thinking too, as you were talking, this idea of how He comforts us so we can comfort others. Like, I truly believe that that verse is real, it's active, it is something that happens every day. And I think in your story too, the fact that you have gone through this spinal leak also allowed you to help your husband as well, correct?
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that, because I think that in itself is miraculous.
Yeah, oh, the wildest story with that situation and some other health things that I have walked through. Me going first has helped every person in my family, both of my girls and my husband, because I've experienced it first and I can support them. So my husband very recently this year had a scheduled back surgery, and he did well with it until about 2 days later. And he started like acting really strange. Like, he tried to go to work and he would call me 2 hours later and he would just sound so confused and like kind of disoriented. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. I just don't feel right. Like, my body is just like it's not my own, and it's like heavy and it hurts, and my brain just is not working. We took him to the emergency room at one point. They said, I don't know what's happening. I had this aha moment of, I think he has a CSF leak.
No way. No way.
So I called the surgeon again and I said, I wonder if he has a CSF leak. And he's like, I don't see how that's possible. He said, I've done this surgery countless times. I've never had that happen. The manufacturer says it's not supposed to happen. He says, I suppose maybe when he's like, this is gross, but using the mallet to pound into the bone during the surgery. Okay. He said maybe it could have like rubbed up against the dura, the lining where the spinal fluid leak would come. He said maybe that happened and it created a leak, but like that's like 1 in a million chance. Mm-hmm. So we went home, and from the emergency room parking lot, I called our family doctor and said, we need an appointment for tomorrow for emergency follow-up. And I told him, I felt so cruel to him, but I said, you have to get up like at 6 in the morning and you have to shower and you cannot lay down until we see the doctor. Because he had figured out that laying down also helped him feel better. I said, I'm sorry, but you cannot do it. The doctor needs to see you in this state. So we get to the doctor like at 8:30, so 2 hours of him being up. He cannot even sit still in the chair. He's literally writhing in pain, holding his head. And when you have a CSF leak, your vital signs, your heart rate, your blood pressure, all that sort of stuff is very different when you sit versus when you lay down. So the doctor, he walked in and I said, hi, I don't want to run the show, but can you please check his heart rate and his blood pressure and let him lay down and then we'll talk? And he's like, okay. So he did, and both of those things were very elevated. And as I explained the situation to our doctor, he honors my journey and what I've been through. And I said, I really think he has a CSF leak. I said, I know that sounds crazy. And like, what are the odds of that happening to two people in a marriage from different causes? I said, can you check his vital signs again now that he's laying? And there was like a 30-point drop in his heart rate and his blood pressure because his brain was not being pulled down into his skull. So he agreed with me. He agreed to order that blood patch. We went to the emergency room that very day. He got a blood patch that very day. His blood patch helped right away, and he has healed from that really well. Like, he is the normal case of a CSF leak. You leak, you get it fixed a couple days later, and then, he's well. And I'm so grateful that his story is simple, quote, simple, compared to what mine was.
The fact that you had experienced that and were able to recognize that because you had walked it first, so powerful, so undeniably God, just so amazing that your husband did not have to suffer as long as you did, simply because you were the one that walked that path first. That's wild to me. Just
Yeah.
wild.
Like so grateful that God had me walk the path first and that God has given me the strength and the advocacy skills now to advocate for him, because otherwise the surgeon would not have recognized it, the emergency room would not have recognized it, and the family doctor would not have recognized it because it wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like it's not even an option. So yeah, like there's undeniable that it's God walking, paving this road for our family.
So you mentioned earlier that during all your times of wondering why and asking God why, that he did not share that with you during that time, but that you know now.
Yeah.
What is the why now? What did he tell you about why you had to go through all that?
I think absolutely, like we just said, the why is so that I could help my family with what they have walked through, with my husband, with my daughter. So because of the CSF leak and me being in bed for so long, I have some like autonomic nervous system issues now that I still go to really specialized physical therapy for and that kind of thing. And interestingly, both of my daughters are showing those some very similar signs with blood pressure regulation and that fainting episodes, that kind of thing. And if I wouldn't have walked this path first and be connected with all the therapists and the whole interdisciplinary team, I wouldn't know how to help them. And between them and my husband, that alone, I feel like, is why God had me walk this journey, let alone to encourage, support, help other people find care, feel supported, other people in seasons of struggle, like pointing them to God and that there is hope when it feels like it's hopeless.
There's such a lesson in that. I think that so many of us just think that things are happening to us and we let God do what he's going to do to us and teach us things, but we don't release it to other people. And so I think that's what's so beautiful about your story is that you have taken the hell that you walked through and you're letting it go through you. You're letting the glory of God and the story that he's writing and the comfort and the peace and the hope that you have found, you're letting that go through you to other people. And I just think that is so powerful and very brave.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a journey for sure. Like there are moments when I think maybe people don't care. Maybe I shouldn't share my story so much. I did write a book about my story and I've done some public speaking about it. And every time someone reads the book or, attends an event, someone is always impacted because it's either their own journey or someone that they know's journey.
Yeah.
And to know that me being brave and following God's call to like share, not, keep my light hidden, is helping other people, that really feels like an honor.
Oh, absolutely. And what is the title of your book? I don't even think I knew that you were an author when we connected before. So tell us the title and tell us where we can find it.
Yes, well, the title is called When Grit and Grace Collide, Persevering Through Life's Challenges with Grit and God's Grace. And the only way you can get it right now is actually contacting me personally, and I can ship you a copy. It's on Amazon, or was on Amazon. I'm having some challenges there. So certainly anyone who wants a copy of the book, contact me. I have some. I can get them to you.
So this has been a wild journey for you. What do the next 5 years look like? What do you hope they look like? What are your plans? What are you thinking for you guys for the next 5 years?
I don't even know. So in 2023, my body was feeling really good. And I actually went back into the nursing world as a nurse coach. So I had my own online business. I supported people like in a coaching role, and it was really amazing. And then at the end of 2023, my health and some of my challenges took a very hard, very quick detour. And I've had to set my business down. Like I closed my business this year, and my body is telling me that I don't have the capacity to do that right now. So I don't know what the next years will look like. as we talked about earlier, like coming to terms with like, who am I? As I come to terms with, okay, maybe I'm never going to be a nurse again by profession. Like maybe my role right now really is to just keep focusing on my own healing and cherishing and supporting and loving my girls so fiercely as they walk through these teenage years, which are a challenge on a good day, you know. Um, so many things coming their way. And if I would be, I'll use the word distracted with other things, with work, with that kind of thing, because I don't have the same capacity as most people do. I have to take a nap every day, you know, those kind of things. If I was distracted and having limited capacity, I would miss out on being there for them. So, really, I think focusing on raising the best humans that we can right now, and then we'll see where
Yeah.
see where God takes us.
Oh, what an amazing calling and just a noble calling to raise humans and raise the next generation and speak into them and teach them how to live with grit and grace. And I just pray blessings over all of you guys and health and happiness and wholeness. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this story. Like you said, whenever you speak, and I don't think it has to be auditoriums and huge stages. Like you said, if it affects one person, if this resonates with one person, it's an amazing thing. And I know this will.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to share my story.
I will put some information in the show notes for listeners that are interested in grabbing that book from you. And I just thank you again. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Oopsie Daisy. If this message hit your heart, make sure to share it with somebody, encourage somebody else, and most of all, spread Jesus. Then follow the Oopsie Daisy Girl on all social media platforms or find more at amandahertler.com. That's Amanda, HIRDLER.com.